What is up, y'all? It's your boy Aniki coming at you with the My Hero Academia Chapter 301 review. If you're new to the channel, we usually go page by page, do the breakdown fully. For those of you who have already been here before, welcome back. Let's get right into it because this is kind of a heavier tone chapter this week. We immediately start off with finally seeing the meeting of NG and Ray back when the wedding was being arranged. And it's clear that they understand pretty early on that it's a quirk marriage. One of the things that they reference, though, is that the Himura clan was once a clan of great renown. And it seems as if Rei may have come from a hero family, but the more traditional Japanese mindset may have been that she wasn't meant to be a hero, etc., like that. And so that kind of fizzled that line out. And in turn, they might be seeing that as a chance to help bring glory back to the Himura clan, because I think that's something that's kind of quietly skated by is the heroes society being very similar to the samurai class, and that you have families like Ida's who, you know, the father was a hero, the older brother's a hero, the grandfather was a hero, so they clearly have a family history of being heroes. So there's clearly like hero clans that kind of form and lineages that are set in stone, and they kind of show out here. So there's hero families out here, and I think that's kind of what this plays into and hints at with the Himura clan potentially being an older legacy family that, you know, washed away or faded out due to not having heirs or proper heirs in their sons. This could also mean that Gatan is directly related to them as like cousins or something like that. Who knows? That could just be me being optimistic. Now, and we kind of see the flower conversation or whatever, and you know, like just Endeavor not having really any game, just him kind of only being able to figure it out based on her staring at flowers and stuff, not really knowing how to talk to women. Go figure. The meathead doesn't know how to talk to women for real. Ray admits that she's not doing well, but she's here. So I kind of like the fact that we're establishing that she's not like fully healthy, but all of this takes precedent for her over her own well-being at this point. She's just not at a state where she can just keep sitting there and being complacent. And we cut away to Dabi back at the creature rejection clan hideout that they took over during Mindville and Academia, laying on the couch. And you can see that as he's patched himself back together with new staples, that the burns have spread a little further up, closer to his knuckles, and he's just actually taking on more damage. He straight up admits that his nerve endings are dead. So we know that Dabi's lost his sense of feeling, so when he's fighting all out, he doesn't actually feel what's going on. He kind of just talks about everybody. And the thing that I find interesting is that he says Enji, Todoroki, Fuyumi, Natsu, and Shoto, but he still calls Rei mom. There's still a piece of him that has some bit of affection towards his mother, and I'm waiting to see how that plays out and how exactly or what exactly it was that allowed that to stay around. Maybe Rei secretly sent Toya away and then just never like got to see him because she got sick, so he wasn't actually dead, but she felt guilty and then plus accidentally did that when she was talking about how she couldn't raise him anymore. Maybe it was secretly talking about Toya, and she sent Toya to go live with another family member somewhere else to keep him away from Endeavor so that he would not think about that, and it was all partially hidden. Especially because Japan does have really good privacy laws that to the degree that you may not be able to find out what somebody you knew is doing or where they're living or what they're up to unless you have a criminal case investigation against them. So even if you're somebody's family member, you may not be able to investigate or find out where they are if they're missing. Not really. So Toya living with other family members may have gotten that debunked as a missing persons case, and Endeavor was just never told because that's not technically his business due to the Personal Protections Acts. We finally get a cutaway back to something that I believe I discussed last chapter during the review, where we had discussed how Endeavor more than likely would have noticed that the quirk had damage, was harming Toya, wouldn't have wanted to keep going, and would have made sure that, because he would have recognized that by him damaging himself, he wouldn't be able to surpass All Might. It wouldn't make sense for him to put Toya through this, so his training likely would have stopped. And we get confirmation of that this week, where we see Toya was upset that he seemed to change his mind, and that he's insistent that he can handle it. And we'll get the explanation that 100% for sure, Toya is built to withstand extremely cold temperatures, but he does also has that red giant level flame attached to him, and that's just an unfortunate quirk combo that he got stuck with. There's a potential that maybe that's like Natsuo had something similar or different. Who knows? And the doctor actually makes it a point to say that trying to create custom children is illegal. So I think he's basically saying we will not genetically engineer any children for you. But I've always believed that Todoroki children ended up being a reference to the Punnett squares, which means I think Natsuo's quirk has to come into play eventually. Where he, for all we know, he may have an ice quirk with durability to fire or something like that. Because I see he's the only Todoroki family member now whose quirk has been held off from us. And so it could turn out that maybe, just maybe, Natsuo is going to be able to like withstand a Dabi flame, but end up dying anyway because he's just not trained with his quirk or something like that. But we'll get into that in a second. As Toya's hair whitens, though, it like progresses and slowly slides over and begins to mirror Shoto's. It's important to note that Fuyumi is like telling Toya to stop training and not worry about trying to be a hero because she doesn't like when he's hurt and Dad doesn't like when he's hurt. So at this point in time, Toya's childhood was largely normal outside of the fact that, like many children, his parents placed on him the expectations of being something that they wanted him to be. And in turn, but unfortunately for them, he got that taken away from him even earlier, similar to how Deku had that taken away from when he found out he was quirkless. Endeavor kind of took this away from Toya while, he still technically had a quirk. And in his mind, he could train and potentially be good enough with the quirk that it wouldn't hurt him, that he'd be strong enough to surpass All Might or strong enough to, do what it takes. Which also brings in a question of maybe Dabi will steal Shigaraki's thunder while he's possessed by All for One, and he'll be the one who gets to kill All Might. That's something that I think would upset a lot of people, but it's something that we could see where Dabi's dream is also ultimately to surpass All Might. But we see where his, from the way he looks at it, All Might is also the thing that helps ruin his life, I think. And same as Shigaraki, who sees All Might as that thing that creates this society that left him behind. So there's these reasons now that we're getting for clarifications for why the villains should hate All Might in the same way we've had All Might justification for Bakugo, for Deku, All Might love justification for Shoto. So I think that's a nice thing that's being kind of built up quietly in the background with these villain chapters. So I'm kind of curious to see what we'll get when we get more out of Toga's backstory and more out of Spinner, if we'll see anything else. But Spinner did acknowledge All Might as a hero, so we'll see how that works out. And Toya basically says that he's got a fire lit in him. He's not letting go of that dream, though. And Endeavor and Ray have a conversation where he basically says we have to keep making babies to break Toya's will. And Toya's aware of this. So, like, as the babies are born, once Natsuo is born, his hair is, like, half covered, half white. And it's inverse of Shoto's. His, left side is white and his right side is still red. Flip it around for Shoto. You know how it go. We see Ray just becoming more upset and less apprehensive and more just outright fearful and concerned. Endeavor just becoming more frustrated as he's trying to stop his son from going down this path because he's constantly coming back burned and injured while also failing to, achieve the number one hero slot. The thing that back when he met the Himura clan, they were like, oh yeah, you're the man who they say is going to be the next number one. So the idea of somebody placing that idea that you'll be number one hero on your shoulders since you're like 18, 19, 20, and like that's one of the big conditions that like, you kind of hear your praise, you're hyped up to be, you kind of have that weight of expectations. Okay, well, I have to surpass All Might eventually. I have to do it. And then he's like, okay, well, because of my quirk, I probably can't do it. So I have to find a way for this to be surpassed, to justify like my lineage to a certain degree. Because Todoroki is a classic Japanese name. And I think it's another example of him just like kind of competing with All Might and his overall Americanism. And so it's kind of like a matter of pride in that regard. I think there's a lot of different angles that are kind of like coalesced in Endeavor's character here, where he's, at the end of the day, he's supposed to be representative to a certain degree of the typical hard-working Japanese man stereotype, where he's really going in and he's doing his best and he's trying every day. And he's just being outshined by this flashy American that makes it seem like it's all easy. And for All Might, it was a lot easier. So there's that disconnect between how much effort he's putting in and what he's getting out, plus the expectations that have been placed upon him. And for him to finally hit the number one hero slot 25, 26 years later, and for it to be just due to a technicality, is definitely something to really alter the way he's been looking at it. Because the same thing that's crushing him is what he was trying to avoid having crush Toya. Like, he's deliberately doing everything in his power to tell him, don't be attached to this hero stuff. But we see that after Shoto was born, that's when Toya's hair is entirely white. As Caleb Cook pointed out on Twitter, for those of you who don't have access to that, this 100% confirms that the anime just got the hair color wrong. And then Toya's like coming in from outside in the middle of winter, talking about, no, Dad, I can do it, I'll surpass him. And there's something that's kind of important here to note, is that it looks like Shoto was very, very recently born. Shoto Todoroki is born on January 11th. Toya Todoroki is born on January 18th. So there's a very good chance that effectively, while handling newborn baby stuff at home, they were effectively missing Toya's birthday, and that's why he was out training. Because not only had the perfect masterpiece been born with both the quirks, now his birthday was going to be upstaged. He already wasn't going to get to be carrying on the legacy anymore. He's the oldest son of the family, and it's going to be the baby, the youngest one, who inherits like the family business and maintains that tradition. All of these things are crushing down on him at the age of like 7, 8 years old, to the extent where he finally like loses it. And he's talking about how everybody in his school wants to be a hero. In the same way that like Deku was surrounded by a bunch of people who planned on being heroes, Toya was stuck in a position where he was coming from this number 2 hero's household and being told, you can't be a hero, in a world where everybody around him not only would have wanted to be heroes, but would expect him to be a hero, especially knowing he has a good fire quirk, especially knowing that he's from the Todoroki household, knowing who his father is. It's like, how could you not be a hero? Endeavor it doesn't even seem like Endeavor was driving home to Toya that he was a failure. Instead, he was just trying to like protect him and say, hey, it's for the better, you don't need to be doing this, it's damaging. He didn't directly tell Toya he was a failure, but rather knowing that he wanted him and wanted him to achieve that, and then gave up on that, and then knowing that Shoto was born and he was the culmination of that ambition, and then knowing that he was never going to be able to be, in his eyes, as good of a hero as Shoto, even if he did become one now. And then you couple that with the fact that it was expected that he would be a hero, even if Endeavor hadn't wanted to heavily train him, even if he had never mentioned surpassing All Might. I don't think that insecurity ever goes away. The society of My Hero Academia is so heavily skewed towards having heroes that just by being born into the Todoroki family and having a high caliber firepower quirk, I don't think Toya gets to live in a world where he doesn't get hit with this weight of expectations, where he doesn't get forced and have this weight on his mind, and he doesn't end up cracking under these pressures. And I think this is just another manifestation of the way that the hero society has consumed people, and the way that being a hero and being tied into that stuff ties into the theme of what Shigaraki's about, which is that heroes always end up hurting their families to help strangers. In the process of Endeavor becoming the number 2 hero, climbing so high, helping so many people, it puts a certain weight and expectations on anyone who comes with him and his family, what they're going to do in the future, what kind of impacts they'll be making going forward. So there's kind of this huge social pressure for Toya that he's already had to realize he's failed to live up to, that he will never be able to live up to, because his body is just not made that way. And ultimately, I do believe that Toya has accepted that he will be dying by the end of the series, not with that structure and phrasing in mind, but maybe he's looking at himself as the ultimate litmus test, where if he becomes strong enough, if he's using the flash fire moves, if Shoto can't defeat him, then he can't surpass him. And then not only does he get to prove that I was the superior brother, but then Shoto has to stop. But if Shoto manages to defeat him, then maybe his fire that was supposed to be fire that was strong enough to surpass All Might, then maybe Shoto truly can surpass what All Might became, and then that'll prove that Shoto is worthy of taking all the glory and all the attention that Toya used to have and getting it from Endeavor. Maybe that's what Toya is after at the end of the day. That's probably like the nicest version of Toya I can think of, and it's still really messed up. So, yeah. Waiting to see what these next couple chapters bring, because especially with this title of this chapter being "The Wrong Way to Put Out a Fire" Part 1, I'm expecting a Part 2 next week, and maybe a Toya Todoroki or Dabi origin chapter to really seal the nail in the coffin. Of course, we could plot twist into a Shoto Todoroki Rising, but I think it'll probably be something more Dabi Toyo oriented, especially because this is the first time we've ever gotten a chapter that is purely like the 6 Todorokis, and like with all of the members of the family actually in one chapter, seeing all their faces, getting to see different thoughts and opinions, even though they're not with each other. So this is kind of a big breath of fresh air, and you notice the only people we really see that aren't a Todoroki member is All Might, and that's only through the TV. We don't even get to see the doctor that they talk to in detail. The only people we look at this chapter and pay really close attention to are Todorokis. Even the Himura elders are completely shadowed out so that you cannot see them. This chapter is all about the Todorokis and what drove their family apart, together, etc. So, if you guys enjoyed this chapter, let me know down below. I'm curious to hear what you guys think or read what you have to say. If you enjoyed this, then you can always join me next Sunday for the Church of MHA. I've actually got a pretty extensive research video coming out that'll probably end up being quite long, but it'll be worth it. So, like I said, let me know. Like, subscribe, share. Hail Hori. You guys have a wonderful day. Anaki out.